When Eleanor Aspinall died in the spring of 1909, she left behind 6 heavy trunks filled with jewelry and no instructions. No heirs, no will, no bouvier, just a locked house at the edge of town and rumors of a 7th trunk no one was ever meant to find. This isn't a story about wealth. It's a story about silence, memory, and the secrets the dead take with them. You're watching Silent Heirs. Subscribe to uncover the stories history tried to forget. The house sat at the edge of the town, 3 stories tall, with curtains that had not moved in years. Not for wind, not for sun, not for eyes. Built of brick and mourning-colored shutters, the windows were sealed from the inside, like the house had long ago decided to forget the outside world, and the world had politely returned the favor. When the woman who lived there, Miss Eleanor Aspinall, passed in the late spring of 1909, there were no mourners, no procession, no family hands to close her eyes. She died alone in the upstairs study, in a high-backed velvet chair that had once been scarlet. But time had muted to a color like old blood. She died with a ring still on her finger, and a key around her neck. The maid who found her, young Agnes from St. Jude's Parish, ran from the house before she remembered to call for help. It was not the sight of death that frightened her, nor even the stillness. It was that the room smelled of violets and iron, a strangely sweet, strangely sharp blend, and there was something in Miss Aspinall's lap. A folded piece of parchment. It bore no name. There had always been rumors about Miss Aspinall, that she had once been a grand pianist in Vienna, that she had a French lover who vanished at sea, that she never married because she was waiting for a telegram that never came. Some claimed she had once bought an entire carriage of champagne only to pour it into the Thames. Others said she never left the house after 1891, the year a single line appeared in the town's obituary column. Mr. Louis Aspinall, 42, merchant of iron and linens, expired in Naples. Survived by sister, Miss Eleanor Aspinall. But Louis had never lived in that house. Not once. And no one ever asked why. Upon her death, the town clerk was summoned. In those days, estates were not yet handled by sterile legal firms or emotionless banks. A death still passed through hands, often those who remembered the living. Clerk Emery Bell had seen hundreds of inventories in his 31 years of record-keeping. He knew the scent of hidden debts. He knew when a will had been altered in haste, when property had passed hands too quickly, when death had been a welcome guest. But this case was different. There was no will, no instructions, no heirs, just 6 identical trunks in the attic, each locked with brass clasps and a rosette-shaped insignia. One trunk, when forced open with a crowbar and considerable effort, revealed a pile of velvet pouches. Inside each, rings, necklaces, tiaras, brooches, some missing stones, some so fine they looked almost unreal. The second and third trunks were the same. The fourth held a single ledger book, bound in dark green goat leather, its pages lined with the careful script of another century. Clerk Bell read the first page 3 times before he dared turn to the second. Property of Miss E. Aspinall, January 1892. Inventory of inheritance by blood. There were names, rows of them, each with an item beside it. Some crossed out in red ink, others circled, and one, just one, scrawled in a different hand, as though added later. Louis Aspinall, sapphire signet ring, returned. Bell paused. There was no sapphire signet ring on Miss Aspinall's hand, only a silver band engraved with a Latin phrase, ad perpetuum memoriam, to everlasting memory. In the back of the ledger, written in a hurried hand, was a single sentence: jewelry is not wealth. Jewelry is a memory you can wear, and sometimes forget. With no will to follow, the town began the process of probate by default. Notices were posted. The estate would be sold, the items cataloged, and any remaining possessions auctioned, with proceeds kept by the county. This was routine. What was not routine was what happened next. A week after the trunks were opened, a man appeared at the town hall. Dressed in worn tweed, he gave no name. He simply asked, Has Miss Aspinall left anything with a crest shaped like a bird's foot? Clerk Bell blinked. He had not mentioned the crest to anyone. The man was turned away. 3 days later, the ledgers vanished from the clerk's desk. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Just an open drawer and an empty space where names used to be. In the weeks that followed, one trunk was stolen. Another was emptied and returned with different jewelry inside, paste imitations, and worthless glass beads. Bell, once known for calm precision, began arriving late and drinking before noon. Miss Aspinall's death had not closed a chapter. It had opened something else, something unfinished. Agnes, the maid, left her position. She was found some months later working in a textile mill in another county. When asked why she left, she only said, "It wasn't right, that house. Something in the attic was watching us." In the county records today, the estate is listed as Eleanor Aspinall, deceased. Estate disputed. Probate pending. It has said the same thing for over 116 years. And in the private notes of Clerk Emery Bell, never filed, never notarized, is one last entry, dated November 1909. There were never 6 trunks. There were 7. The last one was never opened. Or perhaps it was long ago. By the winter of 1910, the house on Quint Street stood silent. Its windows were dusted with frost and time, the curtains unmoved. The county had declared the property abandoned. The remaining trunks, 5 of them now, were auctioned to silence, misattributed, or simply lost. One, perhaps the most valuable, was never claimed by the appraisers at all. And yet, Clerk Emery Bell would later write, "The most dangerous things in the Aspinall house were not the trunk she left behind, but the one she left unopened." What became of the 7th trunk, if it ever existed, remains a quiet fracture in the historical record. But Bell insisted it was real. And according to one final, unfiled note found among his effects, he opened it. The trunk, he wrote, contained only 3 things: a booklet, hand-bound in silk string. On the front, no name, just the date June 14th, 1891. A child's dress, perfectly preserved, white cotton lace with a single tear at the neckline. A ring box. Inside, no ring. The booklet was a kind of personal ledger, not of debts or wealth, but of loss. Each page bore a date, a name, and the word, Ode, July 1887, Margaret, hair ribbon, Ode, December 1889, Joseph, a ledger entry, Ode, March 1891, child, sapphire ring, Ode, and the final entry, June 14th, 1891, Louis A. Return promised. Ode, the date was the same as his obituary, the same as his death in Naples. It was not a will. It was a record of silence. Bell came to believe that Louis Aspinall had not died abroad. He had returned, quietly, unexpectedly, and left Eleanor with a secret so heavy it required 6 trunks to bear it. Some speculated Louis had fathered a child out of wedlock. Others whispered darker things: fraud, blackmail, something buried. But the truth never lived in gossip. It lived in absence, in the torn dress, in the missing ring, in the fact that Eleanor never spoke to anyone again after that summer. Agnes, the maid, said it best in an interview decades later. She opened the trunks every Sunday. Polished what was inside. Like each piece was a name she didn't want to forget. Or forgive. Why collect all that jewelry? Why leave it with no will, no heirs, no instructions? Because it was never meant to be claimed. It was never hers. It was evidence. A curated archive of sins and promises, packed into velvet pouches, measured not in carats but in grief. In 1912, Emery Bell resigned without explanation. He was found 6 months later in a coastal town, living under another name. A box of papers was discovered in his small rented room. Inside was a sealed envelope. On the front, it read, "For the next keeper of forgotten things." Inside, a single folded page. A quote, "Jewelry is not wealth. It is memory made wearable. And memory, like grief, must be carried by someone." And beneath it, a child's ring, silver, with a missing blue stone. There is no longer a house on Quinn Street. It was torn down in 1951 after years of disrepair. But the foundation remains, buried under ivy and broken fence posts. Sometimes, local children claim to find bits of glass there. Small stones, buttons, a clasp, always too ornate for a child, always too old to explain. In the official county archives, the Aspinall case is still marked unresolved. But next to that word, someone has added a second, in faded graphite, carried